Yes, from what I'm saying, and that's why I'm saying, like, some of the analysis just seems like layman analysis, where I feel like okay, so then, blah, 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 like, this is blatant, like, applying the logic that I just gave, and then you play it 3 or 4 times, and then just don't
right, Tom,
acknowledge that.
Layman analysis, that's what did it, so now I'm going to pull it up. Let's see. Please don't concede that, Tom. Not everyone who's outside in public areas near the White House where crimes happen deserve to be put in prison.
That's what I'm talking about.
This is the layman analysis?
Yes.
You can't assume people will hear that.
I would agree. Maybe I wouldn't expect the layman to hear that. I would expect somebody, like, if he says, so then. Yeah,
what are you talking about? Hang on. So yeah, sometimes he will say things like, so but it doesn't apply.
I agree with that. But that was not said.
That's my point.
If they were violent and if they did something,
then
sure.
What about my?
Well, you're admitting it right there. You're saying, yes, I agree. He is giving a trick question that is supposed to make it sound as though this is what you're saying. But you don't say that. That's not in the analysis. That's not in the explanation. No, so we agree. So I don't know why you said no. The answer is yes. We agree he is applying the logic from January 6th to May 30th.
No, you could think different. I think most people will listen to that, and that's my objection. Come away from it thinking, yeah, Tom agrees with Rob that these people deserve to be charged but weren't.
I have already agreed with the most people.
Wouldn't take that away.
You are most people, is what you're saying. You're saying you're most people. Okay. You're saying you're a layman? That's what I agree. I agree. No, I agree. No, we agree now. We don't need to continue. I agree. You're most people.
Wait, Tom, come on. Hey.
I wanted to talk to you because I saw some of your review of me talking to Rob Noerr.
Oh, shit. You saw that? You hear me? Testing?
Yes, I hear you.
Oh, no. Okay.
I honestly, this is almost exactly the review I would have expected if Ryle Kittenhouse watched my debate with Rob Noerr. Like, you came off like a hater.
What?
Yes, you came off like a full-on hater. For the bit that I saw, I'll admit.
I love you.
I watched a little bit of
you.
It. Okay.
I support Tom. I don't know what to say, Tom. I'm like, do you want me to like glaze you? This is the thing is you expect fakeness from me, Tom.
No.
Good debate moments.
No. I don't have an issue with like people being critical of my performance. I have issues with my own performance, but there's even things like that. One, I didn't say. Two, I felt like was just kind of shallow analysis. And then 3, I don't even think like you mean some of the things that you say. Like I just watched you talk.
You think I'm lying?
Well, so I don't know if you're lying or if you're actually just like that confused. But you just watch.
Everyone thinks I'm lying. I just saw you. They just want to tear me apart.
Okay, so I just saw you talk to him the other day, and sorry, I'm a little sick, so my voice is gonna be going.
Oh,
in
Rob.
And out. Yes.
Yeah.
And during the conversation with him, I saw that you said, I think you guys were talking about ICE, and you said that you saw his conversation with me and that you totally disagreed with me. And then the thing that he brings up is that like his issue was with me like advocating for violence against ICE officers and telling people to take the law into their own hands. And you seem to be like nodding your head. Is that the total disagreement with me that you had?
No, I don't remember what I nodded to, but I can explain it a little if you want.
Yeah, sure.
But I just want you to know I love you, bud.
Okay.
And I've never wanted anything like. I hope you know that I don't think that like you're dumb. I don't think that you're whatever. Like I just want to be clear that like when I say things, it's not because I don't think that like you're a decent fella and a good person and that you got your head in the right place. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the first issue I have is how it started. As I recall it, you conceded, I think, that the incidence of violence is higher among left wingers than right wingers. And that is what I understood the proposition to be about, is where is there more violence among the left versus the right? And it seemed in like the first two sentences, in fact, I'm just going to say in the first two sentences, first 2, 3, 4, or at least 2 minutes, I'll say, you conceded the debate proposition in terms of numerosity. Now, there could be an argument made that we ought not, measure the incidence of violence just in terms of the number of incidents, but also deal with like the magnitude of the harm. There were references to like, by what you mean, like murders, but it seemed, I think, unnecessary for you to concede the numerosity point. I mean, it didn't seem that there was any reason to do so, given what's available. Certainly, no one cited statistics that would justify that account. And regardless, I don't think there's any need also to concede on the nature of some of the studies that were cited. Uh, like you admitted their bias, that's his case to make.
Okay,
Uh,
let me on the
yeah,
first
go for
point.
it.
So just to be clear, the debate topic was given to me 5 minutes before the debate. We had both kind of
Okay.
like negotiated, gone back and forth on like different topics numerous times, and then eventually they were just like, "Look, you guys know what you're doing. Like, if y'all just want to sit down and just start debating, like, do that." I'm thinking, well, okay, obviously that's going to turn into like, why would you vote for Donald Trump? So like that's obviously what this is going to turn into. So that's what I'll go there preparing for. And then, yeah, like 5 minutes before the debate, they said, "Hey, are you cool to do left versus right violence instead?" And I just had like 2 or 3 debates on that more recently, and had like, gone over tons of studies and stuff like that. So I was prepared for that. Didn't have the studies in front of me. That would have been nice to know more than 5 minutes before the debate. But,
Yeah, but you don't need to concede then, right? Like,
well,
you don't need to concede yeah, you could just take the view. I don't know. It's your case to make, man.
sure. So my opening statement is, I agree. So the proposition was, who is more violent, the left or the right? And my position was, the left does engage in more incidents of violence. But if you have a
In virtue
person
of what?
who
Why is that your
from the
position?
studies that I've looked at, that is the case, that there are more incidents. So like if you count every incident of a person engaging in a riot at a Black Lives Matter protest, or every single car that was keyed at a Tesla, or every, like all of these different things add up to where left-wing political violence,
Yeah, but that's
there are
like,
more
but
incidences of
left.
this.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen those statistics, and
Okay,
I engage in these debates all the time. If they're so like keying a car is by itself political violence, or
so
expressions of political.
yeah,
First, the question is like, is that violence? Is it violence to key a car? Or is it like I think there needs to be and I say this as someone who is getting a lot of criticism for doing though. I think there needs to be a semantic analysis of what we were meaning by these terms. Like, why are we conceding incidents of violence that might include things like keying a car, acts of vandalism? Like, it seems totally unclear what you're conceding to with respect to the incidents of violence.
I think we
And
did
that,
define it,
if
but
there is
we
something to
agreed
concede,
on the
I
definition.
don't. Of violence and what
Yes,
constitutes an act of violence?
yes. It like we said it was like we included property destruction in the definition. I would agree that property destruction is going to be included in an act of
All
violence.
types of property destruction?
Um,
All types of property destruction?
well, again, so it's for like political reasons is the like thing. Again, the prompt that they said was, who's more violent, the left or the right? I was afraid that he was going to start doing this like, well, the majority of violence is committed in liberal cities, like, but he didn't. So thankfully we were able to like keep it all on political violence, and we didn't get that broad. But
Yeah.
but yes, I think that everybody would consider, yes, like keying a car, because a Tesla at a Tesla dealership, because you're upset with like Elon Musk's role in government right now. Yeah, I think that counts.
You call
as
that
an
political
act of,
violence?
yes, I would call that political violence. Yeah.
What about drawing like chalk on a Tesla for the same purpose?
Probably not. I don't think that would actually have any sort of like destruction, unless it's like unless it's actually a type of destruction to the
Really?
vehicle. Yeah, why would chalk
What about
do
like
any sort of
what about
destruction
like
to it?
paint? Like throwing paint over the Tesla in a way such that it would affect the value of it and require
Yeah, of
repair.
course. Yeah.
So it seems like the violence here is keyed into some kind of like harm of some kind, and not what I understand violence to be was like the application of force, significant like some non-trivial amount of force. And anyway, like whatever it is, there should be some shared notion of violence that we understand. And I just feel like a lot of these studies have like different notions, and we just need to like round out what we mean, because you could be concede like I don't concede that, for example, like also is each riot an incident of political violence or each member in it like
Well,
there
I
just
think that
needs to
yeah,
be
I think that we
clarity
would think
on
of
what's
like
going
each
on. Yeah.
person. And one of the reasons that I wanted to concede this early is because I didn't want to get into those little things. I didn't want to get stuck on those little parts because with Rob, when you get stuck on like minutia, you will be there all day. And so my hope was coming into this because we had just picked the topic right off the rip that we would be able to use this topic to get into a broad array of things so that I could get into the topics of like what Trump is doing, what the Trump administration has done, like how they have radicalized people, gotten them on the right to like engage in more violence, those sorts of things. And so I was happy to just like throw away like all of these acts of violence, but then say, like, if a single person pinches somebody every single day, is this an act of violence? Yeah, sure. But if that person pinches somebody every day, or you have the option of somebody who murdered you one day, I'm pretty sure everybody would pick the person who pinches somebody every single day. The left is pinching somebody every day. The right is coming out and murdering people. And so they are more violent, even though they're doing it one day. They're more violent because this is a just much more violent action. And so this is what we should focus on. And overall, we did is we ended up focusing on those sorts of acts of violence is murder. And
Yeah,
that's
no,
what I wanted to do.
you can disagree that there's like have you ever read the book If You Give a Mouse a Cookie?
No. But I know the idea is that they'll want milk, and
Yeah,
then
if you
when they
give him a
want
cookie, he
milk, then
wants
they'll
a
want
little milk,
bread,
and then he
and yeah.
wants a little story, and then
Yep.
yeah. That's like Rob, okay? You can't give him an inch for purposes of the debate, even just from a rhetorical point, if that was your intention, right? He just instantly says it's not, he concedes the debate prompt immediately. And that, regardless of whether or not you think that you're
No
justified
matter
in
what you
making that
talk about in
concession,
regards
I
to
don't
left
think
vs
that, by the
right,
way. I'm not
it
convinced
will
at all
get
that
bogged down into
even
obscurity
as you're
because Rob
understanding
is
like the
dishonest and
incidents
only
of
cares to
violence, and
dunk
even
on
at that
you.
level of looseness, that is supported by the data. And I'd be interested in what studies that you would cite for that. And please, if you have them, send them my way,
Yeah, I
because
will.
I am not convinced of that at all. But let's not bog it down in the actual
Well,
empirics
you've at
here.
least seen like
Um,
the studies that say that the left engages in more acts of property destruction. Yes.
I have not seen such studies,
Okay.
but that doesn't sound like the left commits more acts of property damage. Doesn't sound like the same denominator,
Sure,
unless
but
you mean
it's not. But the
political property damage.
yeah, so it is like political violence
Yeah,
that when it comes to political violence, the left engages in more acts of property destruction, the right engages in more murders and the
yeah. I'd
or
be
attempts
interested to
of
see
murder.
that.
And
Yeah,
yes, the numbers on there are much much higher for the property
I'm
destruction
telling
for the
you,
left. But yeah.
I'm not convinced until I see them.
Okay.
And I would say in the context of the debate, you should clarify the semantics and be like, well, I take more violence to be with respect to serious acts of violence, by which I mean murders, assaults, and etc. Right? So I'm not considering property damage as I understand the term,
Well,
and
but
by that
that's
it's
why
like so obvious
that's why
whatever.
I'm conceding that part off the rip to say you got that the left does that more, but it doesn't matter because when the right is murdering people at such a high rate, they are still more violent overall. They are a more violent group of people, and that's what I want to talk about. And that's why I'm willing
In
to
virtue
just
of what
like
are they more violent? So
the fact that
because
they
they do more
attempt more
serious acts of
murders
violence.
because they attempt more murders,
Okay.
that they are more violent. That like the murder is nothing compared to like keying a Tesla.
Yeah, I would. I am not convinced by that case, but you can send me the information there, because I don't have by which I'm not saying that it's not the case. I'm just saying I'm not convinced. I'm just saying that and I think that it's his case to
But
make
if
in
you
any event.
saw, but
You
it,
don't have to.
no, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm maybe you're misunderstanding. I'm telling you that
Okay.
strategically, this is what I wanted. I wanted to avoid that conversation. So while even if I know this is true, but I would still want him to prove it anyways. I'm telling you, I didn't want him to prove it anyways. I wanted to focus on the murders so that I'm the one who's like making the accusation and
I
pushing that case.
I hear you. I would just like let him flounder on his bullshit empirical case. What? Because he's just gonna ground it down to we all know it. We all know the left does it. He hasn't read this fucking shit. He doesn't read. This dude doesn't fucking read. Like Rob pretends to read shit,
Yes,
and you
but
should be like,
even when I
listen,
brought that up and
what,
I kept saying that he doesn't have studies, he doesn't have any data, you kept calling this ad
yeah,
hominem.
I
But
don't know
that
that
you're
I did
saying
that.
you said
I don't know
okay,
that
you said that
if I did that,
I was like floundering, stretching to try to get him with something because that's all I had. When if I have data and I'm bringing up studies and I'm saying that like yes, there's a ton of data that backs up what I'm saying, and you're just giving me what you feel like. You kept calling that me stretching and trying to find some way to respond to him when I can't. There
listen,
isn't
we
much
can
of a
watch the debate
response to
review.
him. Just mhm.
I have no problem at some point going through the debate review that I had with you. I don't recall referring to that as an ad hominem, but what I propose is just like letting him flounder on his own lack of epistemic certainty. So he is. If you say like, listen, my case has to do with serious violence. I am not here to make a claim beyond that, and he wants to get it into these kind of like the property damage stuff. Be like, okay, it's your claim that the left does engages in more property damage and violence overall. What's your case for it? And he's just going to say like it's all like he basically discounted the use of studies at all. He's like all these studies are bullshit, and so we just know it.
Yeah,
And that is
correct.
just like such a delicious way to just hang like okay, well if I said I just know the right does more, would you find that convincing?
Hmm.
And then he'll be like, no. Okay, so I don't find it convincing when you say the left does more in virtue of you just knowing it, right? So
Right.
he is so vulnerable to those kinds of attacks. And so in that context, why grant him that? And even if you were correct about the empirics, and again, I'm not saying you're not, I'm just saying I'm not convinced. It looks bad when you say that because even just from like a rhetorical perspective, it's like I can see the left does more violence, by which I mean like property related stuff or whatever. And if you include all of the denominator there, I just think the right does more serious injury or more serious violence or whatever. Just from a like your
Attempted
kind of
murder.
statement there yeah your statement there should be a response. It should not be I think in your opening statement just from a rhetorical perspective. And again I just wouldn't concede it. I would just make him have the burden of the claim, right? Why just concede it? Why not make him prove it? Unless what you're saying is I didn't want to talk about that, but why? Like he's gonna look like an idiot.
Because as I
You
said,
just be like
it
no
doesn't.
I
To
don't
me, it doesn't
yeah.
matter. To me, that he could make the case that like the left engages in more violence and be right or wrong. To me, it doesn't matter if the right is engaging in more murders, attempted murders. Like the rhetorical advantage is on my side when I keep saying, okay, so you have the left, throwing bottles at buildings and keying cars. The right is attempting to murder people. Like I think the rhetorical advantage is on my side when I keep pointing out that he's just talking about property destruction and I'm talking about them killing people.
But he's not
preemptively
talking
biting
about
bullets,
just
bad, I
property
guess,
destruction.
grinning
He's
face
also
with
talking
sweat.
about these different incidents of violence. You know, Charlie Kirk
Correct, but that's what I'm
assassination,
saying is I think
assassination
that that
attempted
is the
Trump.
easier case for me to make is just like giving him the fucking property destruction, moving on, and then the fact that like there are not going to be as many incidents of the left doing this, and he would keep saying that
I never give
you
him
can't name two
anything.
or three in the last couple of years. Okay, well here's the Hortmans, here's the Hoffmans, here's this, here's that, here's this, and every time, oh you can't name this many in the last year. Okay, well here's this, like every single time I haven't heard of anything in the last. Okay, well, here's this. Like every single time he would act like he hasn't heard of this. And I would bring it up and then I would keep saying, you keep saying that like you haven't heard of these things. So I don't even know if
Why
you
so
know
much
about this.
focus then on? Can I ask why so much focus on the government action there? Because that's where because I think you might have so it felt like you were defending political or sorry I should say violence against law enforcement just because so like in response to um the claims about like ICE and violence against ICE, you were basically suggesting, well, the only reason there's violence against ICE is because they're doing so much fucked up shit like Kilmar, this and that. Like,
I was
I
saying the
agree with you a lot on the
protests.
substance of those issues.
I was saying the
Okay,
protests.
but
So
what
again, they kept trying to turn it
yeah, yeah,
into
but you're basically
you're justifying violence. But I kept saying, no, I'm not talking about the violence. I'm talking about the protests, not the violence. Like,
sure, but like in the context of the conversation in which he's describing violence, in which the topic relates to violence, and you are referencing sort of injustices done by um, the government in this case, which we usually, in terms of like political violence, even though I think that there are people who consider government action itself political violence. Everything the government does is violence, or whatever. But usually, people when they talk about this, they're referring to like illegal actions not
hmm
done by government.
hmm
When they talk about political violence, in response to the ICE stuff, you start talking about all the crazy fucking immigration stuff that Trump is doing. Even if you don't intend it, it sounds like you're justifying the violence. You're just saying, "Well, what would you do if Trump people are going around and they're doing crazy shit?"
Well,
So maybe
okay,
that's
so
what
there's
you
two
heard from
different
me.
things. Okay, so there were two different things. So one was he he brought up a tweet that I made where I said, "This is what the Second Amendment is for." And it was a video of two men plain clothes, plain cars, unmarked cars, going into a grocery store, grabbing a guy and dragging him out, and a bunch of people filming this,
Mhm.
yelling, "Are you guys with ICE? Who are you? What are you doing? Like, what's going on?" And them just not answering anybody and just dragging this guy out, looking like regular people. And so I quote tweeted this and said, "This is what the Second Amendment is for." And so he brings this up and he says, "So you're advocating for people to shoot ICE officers?" And I'm saying, well, we don't know that they're ICE officers. They just look like somebody kidnapping people. So, yes, if people right in front of you are kidnapping somebody, yes, this is what the Second Amendment is for. Yes, you should protect your fucking neighborhood. And he kept saying, oh, you're just advocating for people to shoot ICE officers. I'm like, again, we don't know that they're ICE officers in the moment. Like, there's no reason to just assume that these plainclothes random people are ICE officers. That's what I was talking about there, is not like justifying
Yeah.
violence against the government
Okay.
because Trump is crazy.
I
The other things were me justifying protests against Trump and him saying that, like, the left is engaging in violence against them, blah blah blah. And I started saying that, like, yeah, well, the Trump administration initially said that they weren't going to bring back Abrego Garcia, but then the protests started happening, and then they did bring him back. But it was after 3 months of protesting that they finally brought him back. Like, one's justification of protest, the other one's just justification of like using the Second Amendment to stop people from unmarked cars, and regular clothes, dragging people out of places, especially with the amount that the right talks about the Second Amendment and what it's for. Like, this is what it's for. If you want to,
well, as I'm sitting here now, I don't remember exactly the context in which it came in, but I remember getting the strong feeling that it seemed like he baited you into um, sort of arguing the justification of violence in like some, I don't know, small or some unrepresentative case. And if it's I do agree that there are some cases in which self-defense against law enforcement is justified, and it is a very, very small sliver of cases, I will say. I think it's like the odd case where you have like a cop who's clearly exhibiting an intent to like grape someone or do something incredibly horrible, right? Um, or one of these cases where you don't know if they're law enforcement and there's no way to ascertain it, right? Everyone has that line. I just recall from the debate, and again, we can certainly watch my reaction to it at some point, to see if I would stand by some of the things, and you can like walk me through it. But it felt like, as I remember my opinion, is that even if it wasn't the case, that you were justifying the violence as opposed to arguing about who did it more.
um,
I understand your point, your substantive point on the Second Amendment stuff. Um, but like I would just sooner raise like that's not relevant. When I said about the Second Amendment, those are like for edge cases. Like I don't want to talk about that. Like we're here to talk about which is more violent, left or right. And just because I have a view on like one incident doesn't mean your point. That's like I would just close that inquiry off. Like why spend so much time talking about whether it's justified to do a shooting? Just be like, yeah, Rob, you're like fucking quote mining. I could give you a case in which you would think it's self defense against a law enforcement. Why don't you stick to the fucking prompt and talk about which side does it more? This is obviously not relevant. And you're trying to call me a hypocrite, and that's not what we're here to debate. We're here to debate which does it more. I
I mean,
almost feel like
as I
that.
Said,
Like,
is
like
my hope
why spend so much time
was
on it?
my hope is that we would get into like a broad array of topics to where I would be able to like lay out a case
Oh,
of like all of the bad things that Trump was doing and get into those things as well.
oh, then I would just like, then I would sooner just like say, no, I don't want to have this debate prompt. I want the prompt of Trump administration. I'm not prepared to defend this position, or I don't want to defend the position because I want to talk about something else.
Why?
Or maybe you do want to just talk about the one thing. But if you want to talk about that, then like I don't know why spending a lot of time on like one incident and the justification for violence from like presumably left-wing people in that incident uh either helps his case or helps your case. What Rob wants to turn every conversation into is some kind of like hypocrisy conversation. Like he actually has pretty bad faith in the manner in which he approaches a lot of
Yeah.
conversations, in that he wants to put your character in issue, right?
Mhm.
That's what he wants to do, even though your character isn't an issue, right? Because the debate prompt literally is not about your character. And so the fact that you have a quote tweet about that, the violence stuff, he's potentially will say like, this is just an example of how they'll justify violence. But again, whether you justify violence isn't the topic. It's which
Well,
side does more violence.
it would be in the case of like if I think that if I think that like in some cases the violence isn't really like well, I guess maybe you're right. Because I did even say that we went over a portion where we're talking about the January 6th and whether or not it would be justified, and I kept saying like yeah, so like there's scenarios where I would think that January 6th is justified. It doesn't matter
Right. So
whether or not it's
right, right,
justified.
right,
It's
right.
still
So
political
that stuff
violence. Like
doesn't.
it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, like yeah. So that anytime when you're like defending that stuff, it's just like whether even if you're like correct about the discrete issue, it just I don't think it's that helpful. And also, what you can do in the situation of the ICE thing, be like, yeah, like that was justified, but Rob, that's not political violence. That's self defense. There's not political anything about
Yeah,
that. What
for
I'm
me,
advocating for is self defense.
again, I'm also wanting to get into like the hypocrisies of their like arguments and
Okay, so we got to
the
pick the topic better. Then we got to pick the debate
you're
topic
saying
because he,
pick it
yeah.
better, but I'm like I'm given the topic like 5 minutes before. I'm going with the flow, but I'm also wanting to use this topic as a way of like making the case that for why the right is more violent, that the right is more violent because Donald Trump is more radical, that he does justify violence, that he is encouraging his side to be more violent, and that all of this plays in that like there is a reason why right-wing violence is on the rise. There's a reason why they outdo the left by leagues, and that every time Trump is in office,
Well, that's the
even
question,
more
right? Wait, wait,
violence
wait, wait.
is
That's
being engaged in, and that this is part of it. It's going over the things that the Trump administration is doing. There's a reason why there is more violence.
yeah. So, but I just want to be careful because I do think that there's some usefulness in the go with the flow such approach sometimes. If you're in a situation where you're doing call-ins or when you want to seem like more, and I do that a little bit of time with Rob, but in like a formal debate setting, or I should say, it's not like formal, but you know what I mean, like in
Yeah,
a
sure.
debate in which there's a
It's set up.
supposed topic or supposed
Yeah, it's
proposition, right?
pre-planned.
Got to be very careful because how the Republicans will do this and how the right will do this is they'll just make the prompt fucking like ridiculously stacked or like skewed or like stupid. And their power comes from how they frame the debate and what proposition they select. So, an example of this is the debate I had with Brian Mullally at all. They're like the American moral proposition and the left or whatever, and they do some ridiculous shit. And they were actually surprised I accepted the debate because um, I knew it'd get under the skin given how I would understand those terms. But you just gotta because what they'll do is they'll just like raise the debate proposition in front of your face and be like, he didn't answer, he didn't answer. You want to be loosey goosey. They don't, right? What they want to do is be rigid as fuck, except to the extent in which they're putting your character in issue. And yeah, like what I do in my conversations, and you might do something different, is try to limit often the scope of things, simplify, isolate. That's how I like to approach it. Um, the reason for that is it's in ambiguity and in sort of general topics and broad stuff that people who have a good gift of the gab, people who are good talkers like Rob is, can have their most effect. If you give him an inch to talk about anything he wants, then I think he can spin this narrative filled with like bullshit and frankly sometimes even just straight up like lack of any like logical coherence but make it sound convincing. And so
I
with
agree
these
with
kinds
you.
of
The
things, my
problem
goal
is
is always
that
to limit.
I understand your argument and I get it, but the problem is that in
Yeah.
this case, all I'm doing then is just repeating, but the data, but the data, but the data. And I don't have those studies in front of me. I don't have the data in front of me. I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Yeah, then you
And
got to
so
be
I'm not
agnostic. You got
capable
to
of
be
doing that.
you
And
got to
so
do
the
the Andrew
only,
Wilson strat.
well,
Yeah, so you have to do the Andrew Wilson strat. It's like, I'm agnostic on it, and it's your case to make. And the minute he says
but it's
something
not
like, "Well, we
but
just
that's
know
not the
it,"
prompt. The prompt is not the left is more violent. The prompt is who is more violent, the left or the right. And I made sure that like that is the prompt so that we didn't get into this like,
if
you know,
but
who has the
but if you
positive
don't have the
position
facts
here,
and
blah, 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 that like
right,
we
but
both come in with a positive.
but Tom, the question is empirical. You know, it fundamentally is a statistical empirical question, a statistical empirical question that requires like immense amounts of precision and laying out the terms and what they mean. Like, what is included? Is it the number of incidents? Is it the number of participants in the incidents? Is violence extended to this? What counts as political violence? What are we defining as the left and the right? Does that include socialism, communism? Because you're talking about Democrats
Yeah,
and
but that's
most communists, like,
I explained
so
that
all of
the
that is
study that
very narrow.
yes, I explained that the main study that I'm using, one of the things that you said is that I said that all other studies are bullshit. I didn't say this. I said that I agreed that like the APAC one and there was one other, I forget that I agreed was bullshit. I said
Okay,
there was
sorry
one
if I exaggerated.
specifically that I liked, and that was the Cato Institute one, and that they specifically use um, convictions. So not just arrests, not just like, oh, it seems as though this is the thing.
Right,
It's
but
not
like
subjective.
that's
They use
but the
actual
thing is that's a problem,
convictions.
Tom, because that that's a huge undercount of the violence that exists, right? That's the first objection that I would raise. Like Tom, so I'm going to play the part of Rob. Tom just walked in with a study on convictions, but everyone knows that like convictions don't mean shit. Convictions, there's probably like 0.1% of all the violence that happens in this country at all results in convictions under law. There are not enough resources to count on that. So Tom's study sucks. Let me be Rob for a second. And everyone knows that the institutions are stacked against Republicans. They'll go after Republicans and let Democrats go. And so, of course, you know, if he's going to read this study or whatever, it's going to overrepresent Democrats because of the structural biases against Republicans. Like that's the kind of shit where, you know, it is a statistical empirical question. And if we're not prepared to have an in the weeds discussion, we're just not prepared to have that conversation. If I were you, I also would be unprepared to make that case. Like I would not in that discussion. I'm telling you, I wouldn't take an affirmative stance on which side. I would be like, I'm not sure. I'm not convinced either side, and I think it's his case. I would do the Andrew Wilson thing because the thing is, that's my actual position. That's my level of certainty. And the one thing you can't do, in my opinion, and again, I'm not saying you did this, you might actually have access to all that stuff. The one thing I think that is always wrong is taking a position that you can't prove or that you don't actually believe. It's
Well,
just
that's my
always a
point,
recipe
though.
for disaster.
That's
In my
my
opinion.
point, though, is that like I have gone over the data. I had 3 debates that week on the same exact topic. I can't just sit there and be like, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. You have to make the case. Like, well, no, I just finished 3 fucking debates where I'm clearly like citing the data, going over it for long periods of time, and explaining that the right is blatantly more violent by every single study that exists on this. And so there isn't like you're asking me to argue a position that I don't believe in, that I do believe the left does commit more incidents of violence, that they do engage in more
virtue of the
property
studies that you've
destruction.
seen, you've seen those studies, but like you don't have a sophisticated you know, recall of them in the moment, right? You're given this 5 minutes before. You vaguely recall this being your position, but you're not prepared to discuss them, right? And I know you're
Well,
willing to concede them in the
I'm
moment
not
or
capable of
whatever.
going down incident by incident. So like I did state the amount of right wing violence versus the amount of left wing violence over the last 10 years, and then I also stated quoted a different study over the last 22 years. The one thing that you said that I said, which was that I said it's either the AP or the DOJ. I said it was a AP study using DOJ stats, and that they were there was like a separate study that used those two. Like, and I quoted those numbers as well. So like I was able to quote the numbers. I can't quote each incident where he starts saying like, oh, but what about Raylan Jones who did this and they said he was right wing, but he wasn't, like, and we got into that. Like there were a number of specific incidents that I did already know that they were going to bring up and that I've already argued as well. And so I knew the details of those, like like I did know the studies well enough to get into the minutia of it. I just, we don't have the study in front of us to where I can actually present the numbers and be like, look at this, look at that. Like I can't, he has to take my word for it as I'm, quoting numbers.
The truth is, like, he doesn't have a sophisticated statistical background. And the question being presented is fundamentally an empirical one, for which reliance on some expert or methodology is necessary. And I think that, okay, if you want, even if you wanted to concede that, just be like, nobody cares about the number of incidents because some are so minor that no one's minds like that's not what we're talking about. If you want to do that, I don't agree with it, but if you want to do that, that's fine. I would just like pummel him on the methodology and his epistemological standard, namely like the fact that he's says, I don't trust any study. It should immediately raise alarm bells and you'd be like, okay, well, how do you know? You say that we just know that they do more violence in virtue of what? Like, why do you know they do more violence, Rob? We just know it. And he'll just be like, we'll see it. He'll name off things like, well, hang on, Rob. Do you think that just because you can name off more of those, that it is the case that there are more of those? And put him on defense. He was asking you questions like 95% of the time.
Okay, so
he
yeah,
controlled
so
the conversation.
when I say that like there are like criticisms that I'm willing to accept, that is one of them that I'm totally willing to accept. Is for the first half of the debate, I definitely allowed him to like to be pushing me the entire time. The second half, I am pushing him. I am like digging into anything that he says and holding him to it. But for the first half, I was definitely playing defense the entire time and switched it up later on. But like one of the things, so I watched probably 15 minutes of you reviewing the debate.
I'm sorry, Tom.
You made it. No. Hold on, wait. I wasn't. I watched. Okay. I'm saying I only watched 15 minutes of you reviewing the debate. You only made it about 2 minutes through the actual debate in that 15 minutes. So I was just listening to like mainly you talk about one part of it. And it was, and then I saw what you said to Rob Noerr afterwards. But the other part that you were stuck on was that and this is like why I was saying that it almost came off like you were a hater, is that
I'm not a hater.
Okay. I'm telling you why I said this. There was a part where he asks me, why would you say that everybody at January 6th should have been arrested? And I said, because all of them were trespassing. And I think each and every single person who was charging towards the Capitol and helping the people get in and like helping overwhelm the police, they are all part of the process and part of breaking the law and part of the insurrection. And he says, okay, so then should everybody on May 20th or March 20th or whatever, I don't know the date, but March 20th, should they also be arrested?
May 29th, May 30th, May 31st.
Sure, yeah, the BLM like going into the White House. And I said, yes.
Yeah,
and you're like, you said, wow, there's no way. No way
why?
You should agree with this, blah, blah, blah. Okay,
yeah, why?
So, because when he says, so when I say, this is why I think everybody on January 6th should be arrested. And he says, okay, so then should all of these people be arrested on May 20th? And I say yes. I feel like, okay, so then is obviously saying, I'm taking your logic and I'm applying it to this. So therefore, we're talking about everybody who was charging forward towards the White House, everybody who helped them get in, everybody who helped overwhelm the police, everybody who trespassed. Yes, I think all of those people should be arrested. Not each and every single person who's just standing there holding the sign.
No. But Tom, you realize they didn't charge the White House. They like went through some barricades and like were walking towards the fence. Yes, they like kicked down some barricades, like I don't know, meters away.
I don't know anything about the scenario. He said people were inside of the White House.
I know
he said people were inside of the White House.
You're accepting his.
Yes. So
I
based on his
yeah,
framing, yes, I'm saying based on
he
that, yes.
is so, and he said Molotov cocktails when I've already debunked him on that. Like, you just can't let this guy, uh, put any factual predicate without you questioning it. And if he says something, like, his interpretations of fact are suspect at best. I mean, his recounting of the May event is so ludicrous, so stupid, so silly that he'll get lefties who aren't familiar with it to concede like an equivalence on Jan 6th. But you just got to be like, listen, I never heard of this incident. I'm not going to accept your representation of it. If it's the case that they got into the White House ground, obviously they should be charged. But I'm not going to, just because you say it doesn't mean it happened. That's what you should say. I mean, like, really, you should not ever accept, and you
Well,
should
I
make it
think
clear to the
I
audience,
did
like,
say like
listen,
if
I've
they
never heard
did,
of this event,
I
and I
think
am not going to comment on its factualness. I will just say I would, of course, apply an even standard. It's just like I've never heard of this charging of the White House. Guess what?
yeah.
Because it didn't
Well,
fucking happen.
so I did say like if they did X, Y, and Z, I sure like, but I don't know much about this. And he's oh bullshit. You know about this? Don't like you guys always pretend you don't
Yeah,
know about this shit when it comes
that's
up.
Rob.
But I
Yeah, yeah,
literally
yeah.
I don't know. Like I keep hearing him and Tim Pool bring up the scenario where they firebombed the White House. That's always the term that's used. They
Yes,
firebombed
because they're
the White House.
liars, and
But
I
I
debunk them every single time, and they don't even read the one report that sets out even a cursory amount of facts. You should, like, if you're going to engage on that level, think about, like, if you knew about the incident. You obviously didn't, but
I have
I
looked
don't blame
into
you
it
because
before. I
it's
just don't remember it.
no.
I've definitely gone over the details before and debated it before. I just don't remember it at all, like
Yeah,
whatsoever.
it seems, this is what someone would say, like, wow, it seems less serious, right? Because Trump said it wasn't serious and it was no big deal and everything was peace, like,
Well, I
there
did.
was
We
no
went
threat
over that.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Tru Trump was in charge of the DOJ and, like, they didn't do any prosecutions. He certainly, it seems like if there's any, uh, badness in, equivalent application of the law, assuming that's what we're even talking about, whatever the fuck, then that's falls on Trump. He's part of the causality that led to the less, prosecutions of these people. But the truth just is that there is just no equivalence because there was no attempt to kill Trump or charge the White House. They fucking, like, went through a barricade. Give me a break.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, like I didn't know enough about it. So I was saying, like, yes, if they charged the White House, if they did this, then yes, like obviously. And I'm just trying to say that, like, yes, obviously, if they're in the same circumstance, whether they're on the right or the left, like engaging in the same illegal conduct, like I'm going to say that they ought to be held to the same standard. Now he later was saying that I was saying that everybody who was peacefully protesting their also should have been arrested. And it seemed to be that like that was your take as well, is that like in the moment I'm saying that even the peaceful protesters who were just standing there doing nothing wrong also should have been arrested. Whereas I feel like when he says, so then the same thing on May 20th, I'm thinking, well, okay, then obviously we're taking the same logic and applying it, saying everybody who charged towards them and trespassed and broke the law, like, yes, those people also should
I
be.
don't remember what exactly you said or what I said in response to it. We can definitely take a look at it at some point. But so maybe it's a case that I took, like, the wrong representation of your view and accepted whatever Rob's framing was. I don't recall
Yes,
that.
that is what
And
it felt like. I don't think I can pull it up.
okay.
I think it's behind members only. But the when I say like
Oh
I
no, I don't
watched
do that
like
anymore.
15 minutes and I think you went over like 2 minutes of it. You even played it like numerous times um and that was like the only real part that I ended up
That's
watching you
possible,
go over.
Tom. I'll take a look at it. I don't remember that part, I will say.
Okay.
But I promise you, I'm not a hater. I want you to win. I don't respect the way Rob debates, and I always like to see him knock down a peg. But the way to do that, in my experience, is wrangling him and limiting him and pushing questions towards him, and because he will try to be slippery and he will try to do equivocations, and you need to really just track what he's doing. Like, whenever he puts your character in issue, you got to be like, oh, I didn't think we were here to debate whether I'm a hypocrite. I thought the debate was this or that, because he will, I think, selectively abuse those, um, the nature of the proposition and even just the framing of the whole debate. Like, did you really want to have a debate about political violence from either side? It doesn't seem like something that
Oh yeah.
super interests you from a statistical point of view. You
Oh
know,
yes.
from a statistical point of view.
Oh yeah, that's why
It
that was
interests you?
like that's why it was like my 5th debate on the topic. Yes, after the whole thing with like Charlie
Oh,
Kirk and the amount that everybody was running around saying that the left is violent and that this is like the left is so violent that we have to go to war with them and blah blah blah. Well, every single study, every single stat on this proves the exact opposite. That by far and away, the right engages in somewhere from 70 to 90% of political violence. And so there's no way that you guys can be pointing at the left when it is by far you guys, and especially when Trump is in office, there is even more political violence from the right.
Rob picks his prompts carefully. He tries to, and he just wants to be able to wax poetically about how the left is violent for 2 hours, and it's just an extension of the kind of monologue that he runs on his show, which he adjusts periodically and whatever. But yeah, no, as I recall it, I just wish, because so much of his argumentation. Which, one second, I said Rob chooses his prompts
Prompts.
specifically. Yeah, like
Initially, I was the one who
I think that he
suggested
likes
the topic.
to. Yeah.
And they said,
Oh, you did?
do you want to do this? Like weeks earlier. And they're like, do you want to do this? And then a couple days later, I was like, you know what? I have like 3 more debates that week that are scheduled on the same topic. I don't know that I want to do the same topic for like the 20th time. And so maybe not that. If we can find something else that would be better. And they said, okay, we'll look into it. And then just, never came back with anything else. And so then, on that day when they brought it back up, I was like, all right, I guess this is the thing that I know a lot about and that I've debated a bunch. So why not?
Well, listen, if at some point you want to walk through the debate together, either the debate or my review of it, I would love to do that. I think that would be fun. You just let me know.
Okay.
I promise you I'm not here. I love me some Tom Tent. There's never a moment where I'm not cheering you on.
Well, yes, in this case, it is hard for me to recall exact moments, but from yes, from what I'm saying, and that's why I'm saying like some of the analysis just seems like layman analysis, where I feel like okay, so then blah blah blah, like this is blatant, like applying the logic that I just gave, and then you play it 3 or 4 times, and then just don't
all right, Tom, you pissed me
acknowledge
off.
that.
Layman analysis. That's what did it. So now I'm going to pull it up. Let's see. Just stay around. Layman analysis. You piece of shit. Understand what this motherfucker is saying?
Because I wish I had that. So, well, thank you so much, Temple, and suck a dick. How's that? Anyway, continue.
Yeah, if I'm part of a mob that is helping overwhelm the Capitol Police to make it easier for a bunch of people to charge into the Capitol, and some of those people do have treasonous and insurrectionist expectations once they get in there, if I am part of helping that, especially when everybody's chanting things like hang Mike Pence or stop the steal, then yes, I am part of this action, and they should have had years.
So then everyone that was there May 30th should have got years in prison.
100%.
Okay, but they
don't say that. What the fuck? Wait, please don't concede that, Tom. Not everyone who's outside in public areas near the White House where crimes happen deserve to be put in prison. What the fuck?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is the layman analysis?
Yes, not everyone who is near where crimes happen. He just said, everything I just named is a crime. And then he says, okay, so then what happened on May 30th, all of them should have been arrested as well.
So don't say that. What the? So let's just get it right now.
Yes, and part of helping that, especially when everybody's chanting things like hang Mike Pence or stop the steal, then yes, I am part of this action, and they should have had years.
So then everyone that was there May 30th should have got years in prison.
So everyone that was there May 30th should have been put in prison. Okay, that's the question. All right.
Well, he says, agreed? And so everyone who's there May 30th should be. The reason
All right, let me just make sure he says and so.
Of this action, and they should have had years.
So then everyone,
you agree he doesn't say and? He says
okay,
so,
yeah,
right?
so. Okay, yes, so everyone, yes.
Okay, all right.
Or stop the steal, then yes, I am part of this action, and they should have had years.
So then everyone that was there May 30th should have got years in prison.
So everyone that was there May 30th should have been put in prison, and your answer is
100%.
Okay, but they
100%, not qualified. Yes, if they did that, you just said 100% they should be.
Sure, I'm
So do
saying
you think
that
it's
if he
unreasonable for
says,
me to say that you're assuming his facts?
well, when you say is like I'm accepting the facts of like the fact
So
that
the
people
question and
committed
answer are as
crimes.
follows. So everyone who was, I know, but you didn't say that. You just had an unqualified yes. Now maybe that's what you meant, is assuming they did crimes, but I don't think that that's part of the question and answer. And you can't assume people will hear that. He's asking you an actual event. Everyone who was there on May 30th should be charged. That's like thousands of people, or
I
at least hundreds of people.
I would agree. Maybe I wouldn't expect the layman to hear that. I would expect somebody like if he says so, then
no.
yeah,
What
yes,
are
yes.
you talking about? Hang on. So
Everybody's chanting things like
Hang
expectations once they get in.
hang on. Let's go back a little more. I'm gonna just go back a minute. Any of these motherfuckers are nonviolent. We had to cash out what we mean by. Wait, what's that? You don't care if they're violent? Oh, wait. Let's go back.
In total. I had like 10-year sentences. There's people with 5-year sentences. But again, most of the people at January 6th, even the ones who went inside, had I think an average of 3 months in total.
you mean the nonviolent people?
Yeah, even nonviolent.
Oh, so you're comparing nonviolent to the violent ones that got arrested in BLM. So they don't
care if they're violent.
You don't care if they're violent? Oh no, Tom. The proposition is about violence. Tom. You should just be like, hey, I think breaking and entering is violent no matter what. If someone broke into your home, would you say it's violent? So don't concede that any of these motherfuckers are nonviolent. We had to cash out what we mean by violent here. But then also, the proposition is about whether it's violent, so you should care about it. Bruh.
Yeah.
So I apologize.
Yeah,
for that. So sorry.
No problem.
Go ahead, you did.
Yeah, I don't care
Oh,
if they're
sorry,
violent.
Oh,
Anthony.
yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
okay.
One more time. We got a soup chat. Just
Hope
good
your
job.
Tuesday was
By the
better.
way, chat, y'all are doing a really good job when I'm interrupting. There's time in your chat. Keep it up. We need the money. Money now, money please. We don't have any APAC backers over here, so I need the money. And by I mean Red needs the money.
Jake called it on shitting on
Spent a lot of money
IPAC.
and he did it for you, the chat. So yeah, thank you so much for reading the super chat. Gifts, please don't read this. Those it's not possible for all. Well, that's
Does anyone understand what this motherfucker is saying?
because I wish I had read that shit. So well, thank you so much, Pentuple, and suck a dick. How's that? Anyway, continue.
Yeah,
Good
if I'm
one.
part of a mob that is helping overwhelm the Capitol Police to make it easier for a bunch of people to charge into the Capitol, and some of those people do have treasonous and insurrectionist expectations once they get in there. If I am part of helping that, especially when everybody's chanting things like "Hang Mike Pence" or "Stop the Steal," then yes, I am part of this action, and they should have had years.
So
not
then
3
everyone,
months.
so everyone that was there May 30th should have got years in prison.
100%.
Okay, but
You're accepting his facts, aren't you?
I think it is obvious that he is taking the logic that I just used and applying it to what it is that happened on May 30th. I feel like that is blatantly obvious.
Misapplying. But you're the one who has the obligation to say, assuming that's what happened, then yes. Assuming
Yes,
that's the
yes,
standard I apply, then yes.
yes, but that is
his question is meant to fuck with you and doesn't. Yeah, sometimes he will say things like but it doesn't apply.
I agree with that. But that was not said.
That's my point. Is like
that was not said. I
anyone
agree with
hearing
that. I agree that I should have given more clarification and said like immediately like, oh no. I like if they were violent and if they did
Okay, so
something,
then what about
then
my,
sure.
What about my? So
Well,
then
you're
what am I
admitting it
wrong
right there.
about?
You're
So-
saying yes. I agree. He is giving like a trick question that is supposed to make it sound as though this is what you're saying, but you don't say that. That's not in the analysis. That's not in the explanation. It's explained later on in the debate where we get back into it, and he's like, "You said everybody who was there should have been arrested." I was like, "Wait, no." I said applying the logic
You
of what
did
happened on
say
January
that. Wait,
6th.
no, you said it. No,
Hold
you
on.
didn't say
Okay.
that. You wish you said that.
No.
You
Okay.
wish you
Hold
said
on.
that. You
hold
didn't
on.
say that.
Okay. Again, I am saying that with his wording, that is what he's asking. Now, he may be asking it that way so that other people may not think that that's what he's asking. But based on the wording, when he says that I say this is what happened at January 6th, and then he says, so these people here should also be arrested, he is saying we're taking your logic here and applying it there. That is what he's saying. We agree that's what he's saying. Yes. Yes?
No, we don't.
No.
Well, no, he's not. No.
Okay,
no,
then
no,
that
no.
is the
So
disagreement.
let me give you let me give you an example, right? So if you said something like this, you're like, if someone lies to Congress, that's a crime and they should go to jail. And then he asks, so you admit James Comey should go to jail? And you're like, yes. What just happened?
Well, I would be implying that James Comey lied.
Yeah.
Yes, so he is
That's an
applying the
issue.
same logic. No, so we agree. So I don't
No.
know why you said no. The answer is yes. We agree he is applying
no,
the
that
logic
would
from
be a
January
no,
6th to May 30th.
No, he is misapplying it, and
Correct,
your answer
misapplying it. That's
isn't
not what
capturing
we're
the
talking about. We're
qualification.
not talking about misapplying right now. We're talking about the fact that he is applying the logic that I used, not whether or not it appropriately applies, whether or not he is applying the logic from January 6th to May 30th. Yes, that is what he's saying. Yes.
He is referencing what you just said
Mhm.
as a standard,
Correct.
and is definitely, like, attempting to have the pretense that your logic or whatever your argument or set of conditions by which something would be justified from the previous sets of sentences is applying to this new fact pattern, no doubt. But that's not my critique. The critique is it doesn't apply to the factual circumstances of May.
I understand.
Or do
Why?
you?
I don't know why you keep
Oh,
moving
sorry.
past this.
I don't know why you're frustrated. Sorry.
Because
I'm trying to understand.
Okay, because I just asked you a minute ago. You agree that he is applying the logic that I used from January 6th to May 30th. And you said, no, I don't agree with that. Now you are agreeing with this.
Oh.
He is applying the logic.
Oh.
Not the circumstances don't apply. They are not applicable.
He is purporting to, or by saying so, right? But like he's
Correct.
not actually applying it, right?
I
mean,
okay. Again, I don't know the circumstances of May 30th. So you're saying they are not applicable, but I'm saying the logic of who ought to be arrested, that is what he's applying.
And yeah, whatever standard you laid out is what he's purporting to apply.
Okay, and according to his circumstance, where people did do that, those people would also be arrested according to that logic, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Assuming it were true.
Yes, and in this debate, I am assuming that it is true, and then your answer is not everybody there committed crimes, but that is the logic that we're using. Is the people who committed crimes.
Okay, but you might have wished that you said that, like, I'm taking your facts as given, but you just gave an unambiguous answer to an unambiguous question. So for example, I'll give it to you again. Like you say, this is you, Tom. Lying to Congress is a humongous deal. I mean, we have our Congress and they need to be there in order to like ascertain facts. And if you lie to Congress, you're not letting them do their legislative and democratic purpose. And so lying to Congress is a very humongous deal. And I honestly think everyone who lies to Congress should be charged. And then Rob comes in and says, okay, so you admit Comey should have been charged. And then you say, yes.
I understand.
In that circumstance.
I understand. Yeah. You're saying it's not applicable.
You just have, yeah. So my critique isn't that your logic isn't sound or that I wouldn't agree with your charging logic or whatever. It's that the facts in the circumstance are wrong.
But you immediately say that not everybody there broke the law, right? But the logic that I'm using doesn't apply to people who didn't break the law. So let's flip it around. Let's say that he, with his scenario, okay, he gives the scenario where he says all of these people charged into the White House, they firebombed the White House, and I think that everybody who did that all of the BLMers who did that. And who helped overwhelm the police and charge towards the White House. Anybody who was part of helping this happen should have been arrested. And then I say, and so then you think that, everybody at January 6th should be arrested. And he says, yes. Would you stop it and be like, Rob, there were people who didn't trespass on January 6th. There were people who were just standing there holding signs, peacefully protesting. No, you would know that we're only talking about the people who supposedly helped overwhelm the police and charge towards the Capitol. That is It only applies to the people who are breaking the law, not anybody else. But you said not everybody there broke the law.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't apply to the people
Yeah,
who
but
didn't break the law.
Rob's question did not have the qualifications and conditions that you claim that he had. His question was everyone who was there on May 30th in public places where they were.
Everyone
where
who
they
was there.
were largely authorized to. Yeah, like that's his question and answer. So, what do you think my problem is with your answer? Do you think my problem with your answer is?
I think your
that
problem is that
I
it's
don't
not
agree with the
applicable.
logic of
No, I think that your
the
problem
facts.
is that it's not
Yeah.
applicable. Yes, with the facts. But I'm saying
Yeah.
that
So,
even if
what
that is
you agree with
true,
that? But you agree with that critique, right?
yes, I
So,
agree
yeah,
that,
you agree with that critique.
again, I don't know much about this. So assuming what you're saying is true, that what I should have said in the last with the conversation with him, assuming what you're saying is true, then yes, I agree with that. But the again, the problem
Which
that
part of
I'm
my
at,
critique do you not agree with? What did I say here that you don't agree with?
that
The notion that you what
that
like I'm not saying that your logic wouldn't apply to those people. My issue is that the way you answered it was declarative and total and unambiguous to a factual predicate, which isn't the case. That's my problem, not with your like logic underneath it.
that I think the
It's clear that I'm
implication of
identifying the
his
problem is that
I think the implication of his question is that he is applying the logic. And so therefore we are only talking about the people who committed crimes. That he is not saying, hey, you said that all of the people who committed crimes on January 6th should be arrested. So then you're saying everybody on May 30th should be arrested, meaning everybody who didn't commit crimes as well. There's no way anybody listening to that thinks he is saying, oh, you just gave me this logic where only people who commit crimes are getting arrested. I now also
everyone
think
thinks
you're committing, you're also wanting people who didn't commit crimes to be arrested. There's no way.
I think everyone who that most people who hear that sound like what your position is that the people on May 30th who were there all deserve to be arrested because that's what you answered yes to 100%.
Okay.
And you might say, well, what I meant, so the more accurate thing is provided that they fulfilled my standard, then yes, that's the right answer, right?
Yeah, sure. Again, I think that's implied. I agree that
Yeah.
he's being bad faith and he is like
It's
trying
not
to like,
implied.
it is
Yeah, no,
implied.
he's trying to fuck with you, but it worked because it'll confuse people.
Yes, but you're not explaining
It's
that. You don't say that. So again, it is clarified later into the debate that that's obviously not what I was saying.
Yes, I
But
do.
you do not. You say, Tom,
You're not supposed to
not
listen to me.
everybody committed crimes.
Yeah.
Should have had years.
So then
not 3
everyone,
months.
so everyone that was there May 30th should have got years in prison.
100%.
Okay, but they
But here I would listen to what I take issue with.
Don't say that. What the fuck? Wait, please don't concede that, Tom. Not everyone who's outside in public areas near the White House where crimes happen deserve to be put in prison. What the fuck? And when you say that, you don't come off as fair. Rob's not gonna be like, okay, at least you're fair. No, he's gonna say, well, they weren't, and so there's a two-tiered system of justice, and you're admitting that the left is getting punished less. Don't concede things just willy-nilly because you think that they're gonna be like good concessions to appeal to the fair. You should be asking the questions of Rob. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't understand what you think I did wrong there. So what you think you what you're saying is it was clear based on how you answered it that you were conditioning your answer of yes 100% on the set of factors that you described that were frankly very specific to January 6th.
Do you remember why we just played that clip just now? Why did you hit play?
Yeah, to look at my commentary and seeing what part of it you disagree with, right?
No, I had already claimed what I disagreed with. I said you did not explain that in your critique. You said yes, I did.
Explain
Here, I'll
what?
hit play. That
No.
that he is saying something that is that seems obvious that he is applying my logic, that it implies that he is applying the logic that I just used for January 6th to May 30th, but that you don't say that anywhere. You just say, Tom, why are you conceding this? Don't concede this.
Yeah, it sounds like to a reasonable listener, I think, that you're conceding the factual predicate and making a statement that's not conditional on fulfilling the standard, but assuming that it fulfills the standard. And actually saying that therefore these people deserve to be in jail. That's what it seems like. I think most people listen to that think Tom thinks that these people deserve to be put in prison but weren't. You know? You could think different. I think most people who listen to that, and that's my objection, come away from it thinking, yeah, Tom agrees with Rob that these people deserve to be charged but weren't.
I've already
And
agreed
you're
with the
saying that
most
most people
people.
wouldn't take that away. Yeah, so like I
You are most people,
listening
is
to
what you're
that,
saying. You're saying you're most
oh,
people.
okay.
You're saying you're a
No,
layman?
no,
That's what I
no,
agree.
wait,
I agree. I agree. No, I
wait,
agree. No,
wait,
we
so
agree now.
how-
We don't need to
how-
continue.
how-
I agree.
what
You're
should
most
I-
people.
Wait, Tom, wait, Tom, come on. Hey, what should I have said differently? I should have said what? Tom is being tricked.
That the way that Rob is asking the
Bamboozled?
question, this obviously implies that he is applying the logic from January 6th to May 30th, and that and he doesn't bring the again. He doesn't act as though that's what I said until way later, and that's when we correct this. But that yes, that it seems as though he is applying the logic from January 6th to May 30th, and that I am just being consistent with my logic, whereas he's trying to make it sound as though I'm saying that people who didn't commit crimes should also be arrested.
I think that my issue here, as expressed, is that it sounds like you're conceding the factual predicate. And I understand that in your mind that like there is that conditionality that it fulfill the standard, and let me think. But I think my issue starts and ends with how it appears to someone listening to it.
Okay.
Which is that you're is that okay? I don't
I
I'm
like
sorry
I
that I
don't
reacted that
necessarily
way.
it's no, I don't want you to be sorry. I'm just the okay. When a bunch of people like watch somebody say, I don't care that Charlie Kirk got murdered. I think it's wrong that somebody murdered him, but I don't really care that somebody did it. Like he was a piece of shit. Do you think that it's odd that the layman would look at that and say, this person celebrated Charlie Kirk's death?
Is it odd that the layman would say he celebrated?
Yes.
Yes.
You do. Okay. So I don't think that's odd. I think that that's like kind of what it comes off as. I think that that's kind of how it feels to people, as though they're celebrating.
Celebrate?
Yes, that they're happy that like when they say, I don't care that he died.
Yeah, maybe.
He
I
was
don't
a
know.
piece of shit. And
I don't really know what they would say about it. Yeah.
I think even I watched maybe 5-10 minutes of you debating Destiny the other day. And at one point he was talking about the fact that like, Denham's celebrated, the CPS getting called on. That obviously not true. Blatantly not true.
That was a rough moment.
Yes,
that was a rough moment for him.
Yes, it is ridiculously not true. But like you didn't end up like holding him to it. He ended up getting to like weasel out of it, and move on. Like he pretended he had another clip and then just like ran away from it.
Yeah,
and for me,
I was letting him
reviewing
go
this,
a mile a minute.
For me reviewing
he was
this,
desperately
I'm
coming
like
from one thing to another. It was pathetic.
yes. For me reviewing this, I'm sitting there like, hey, obviously not celebration. Nowhere fucking close. This is a ridiculous thing. This is like a MAGA argument. The fact that he's trying to like say Pisco's doing the MAGA argument when really Destiny's doing the MAGA argument here about Charlie Kirk. Like this is kind of ridiculous. But you don't make that case and you don't hold him to it. And so like I to the layman, maybe you seem like you can see that Destiny wins. Denham celebrated it and moved on. But if I'm reviewing this, yes, I'm making the case that like, yeah, Destiny's wrong here. Like this is a ridiculous point to make. And he's just able to like bring up 20 fucking points one after another afterwards, to where it's hard
Yeah,
to
I
like
think-
hold him to that one fucking point.
I think the aftermath speaks for itself. Like the fact that the conversation is not regarding substantive, like, oh, it's so clear that denims falls in the standard, but instead it's a conversation about the propriety of doxing, indicates what the takeaway from that conversation was, which was the sheer absurdity of the standard being offered. And because everyone, I mean, think about it really. What is everyone talking about afterwards? Is whether or not, culpability of doxing, which was exactly the point that I prepared for, in the sense of where I wanted to steer. And I was letting him go a mile a minute, saying all these like ridiculous things, and attacking my character at various different opportunities. And I think the results speak for themselves. Now, people can cope and say that the specific denims points made any sense whatsoever, or that in the exchange regarding the violence stuff, where it's like, oh no, it has to be. What did he say? He was like, imagine that you were like planning things that weren't jokes, but they weren't strictly speaking conspiratorial plans or anything like that, and you don't think I would change my behavior after that? As though the watching of the Bad and Banana video were anything like that. I think it speaks for itself, and I was very comfortable letting that be the state of the conversation. That said, if you think that I should have stopped right away and been like, wait, do you admit you're wrong there? I mean, he was very, I think he was emotional, and I think that he, wasn't about to be hemmed in by my
Well,
attempts
3
to
times
be
he
like,
said
"No,
he
no,
had
answer my question
sources,
first."
and then afterwards was like, and then finally
Yeah.
said, "Oh, I'm sending you this one
That
Denims
speaks for
video."
itself.
But then was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
it
you know what?
speaks for
I am a better
itself.
person than Denims. We don't need to play this." And I think to a lot of people, they might think, "Oh, well, that was the Denims proof," but they're not even going over it because they know that,
Wait,
she celebrated it there.
his
But
his
that
condemn-
is that is my feeling in this
his
debate, is that like
condemnation
a
of
lot of
her-
this is that like a lot of this does speak for itself. And I think that like the fact that he doesn't have any data and that I'm the only one quoting data, 2, the fact that he says that he doesn't even believe in data, so even if even if he had the data there, like he wouldn't believe it. And then 3, the fact that like, yes, like in moments like this where it's if for some reason he would think that I would state a standard for who's going to be arrested, but then he thinks it makes sense to apply a totally different standard to another thing that's similar to it, that would speak poorly on him, not me. So if I say,
Okay, so-
yes, everybody at March 30th should be arrested, I think to anybody, they would think like, oh, he's applying the same standard. Tom's going to be consistent on this and apply the same standard, not immediately after apply a totally different standard to something that Rob is saying is similar. I would think, yeah, most people would look at that and be like, oh, yeah, he's being consistent on his standard and Rob's not testing it.
Okay, but look at the difference here, in my opinion, and you tell me what you think. Assume that what had happened was that Steven said, so you condemn Denims for celebrating CPS.
Mhm.
And I say yes. Versus me saying, well, I don't know that she did that. Show me that. Don't you see a huge difference between those two? Now, I could come up later and quote and say, well, I just assumed his facts, and so I didn't really see it. And a reasonable viewer watching it would have known that I was just only applying the standard, assuming the facts were true. But like, don't you agree that it like is highly relevant if I answer a direct question, assuming a factual predicate, and it goes without any qualification? Usually
Yes.
what I'll say is something like,
I've already
the
conceded this
entire
numerous
conversation with
times.
Hutch. Yeah, the entire conversation with Hutch was like questioning the factual predicate that she saw specific chats. And so I encourage you not to grant factual circumstances, except to the extent to be like, and at every juncture in which you are assuming said facts, to make it clear that it is an assumption.
Yes,
That's the only thing.
I've
That's
conceded this
kinda
numerous times, as I'm saying that, yes, like I should have like restated my full position there to say like, yes, if that happened, then anybody who broke the law should have been arrested. Again, I was talking about the analysis and what it is that somebody who's reviewing this, what somebody who's going over this, what it is that they would say, not.
Don't you think
what
someone
the-
watching my analysis would? Do you think that someone watching my analysis would understand that my analysis pertains to the factual predicate, not it not being clear that it's wrong? Don't you think that you would get that from observing it?
I would get that you also think that that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying there is what
So
you
again,
said.
yes. So again, that is my issue. We keep going off onto this other thing. That is what I keep saying, is that was my issue, was the analysis and whether or not you think that if somebody says, and so right after hearing my logic for one thing and then saying, well, for A to B, then you would do the same thing. That is what I'm saying, is that if the analysis is you also think that I'm saying everybody there should be arrested, even though I just stated a standard where only the people who are committing crimes would be arrested, that if you're also thinking that's what I just said, I don't know how you would also come to that conclusion.
My conclusion is in the debate that what was said was what was said. And I understand that you probably don't know about the factual circumstances of May 30th, whatever, and you're taking Rob at good faith on his facts, for sure. And I think that if you knew about it, like I'm telling you now, I believe and agree with you that you'd be like, oh, then my standard doesn't apply because the
I'm
conditions
sorry,
aren't met.
you're doing it again. We're not talking about that.
Oh,
We're
sorry.
talking about whether or not he would be applying the same logic of people who committed crimes would be arrested. Therefore, people who committed crimes would be arrested. Not people who committed crimes would be arrested. Also, in this other case, people who didn't commit any crimes and did absolutely nothing wrong would also be arrested. Just because he said all the people at May 30th would be arrested, that we would then include people who didn't commit any crimes when it seems obvious he is applying my logic.
You're saying that you think that I'm implying that your standard is anyone in a vicinity who committed crimes should be arrested.
I'm saying that that is my standard, and that you are instead thinking I'm saying people who didn't commit crimes should be arrested.
You think that I think that you think people who didn't do crimes should be arrested.
Yes, that is what you say.
No, isn't it more a better? What do you think about? Do you think it's a better interpretation that I'm saying these people didn't do the thing?
Nobody committed any crimes that day.
No, people did commit crimes that day.
Okay. So the people who committed crimes that day would be arrested. There were people at January 6th who did not commit crimes. There were people who were there who were just holding signs and off in the distance. They didn't trespass. They didn't go past any barriers. They didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
People on May 30th, some did trespass. Some did commit crimes. I'm saying the logic would also obviously be that we are only applying this to the people who committed crimes. And your statement right after is, but not everybody committed crimes. And I'm saying that I feel like.
But Rob's question was about everyone there at May 30th.
Yes, it seems as though his
I'm not
he is
I'm
okay.
not trying to be bad faith.
I'm saying that it seems obvious that he is applying the logic that I just used for January 6th. Yes? Do we agree on this?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
if he's applying on the logic. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So if he is if he is applying the logic of what happened at January 6th to May 30th, then the logic would be the people who committed crimes on May 30th would be arrested. Yes?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
if it's a similar he's
Yes.
he's distilling a rule and he's applying it to a bunch of people, right?
Yes. Okay. So if that's the case, and then you respond, but not everybody committed crimes, Tom, you're including people that would not apply to the logic. And now we're saying
it wouldn't apply to the logic, but would apply to what you said in response to his question. Yeah, it wouldn't apply to your logic because it's not true. Your logic is fine, but the answer is wrong.
okay.
I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to be difficult.
I
Right,
just,
my-
I
this
just,
was
I just do feel like I feel like what I'm saying is that I agree that I should have restated this. I should have done better, but that Rob is giving a framing that yes will come off optically as though
Yes, he's being
I
tricky.
am saying
He's being
yes,
he's
as
being an
though I'm saying
asshole.
yes, as though I'm saying that people who didn't commit crimes should be arrested, but that I understand people being tricked by this. I would understand Layman being tricked by this, and that like it is surprising when somebody who isn't a layman would be tricked by this and still make it sound
What do
to
you think
their
I'm tricked
audience as though
by?
I'm saying the
You-
same thing. We just went over it like 10 times that if you think that I'm saying people who didn't commit crimes should be arrested, when it seems obvious he is applying my logic from one to the other, that where only the people who are committing crimes are being arrested, but your response is, but Tom, not everybody committed crimes. Well, that if you're saying he's being tricky,
It
well,
seems to
sounds
be
as though you were
undermining the
tricked.
factual. Well, no, it sounds like I wasn't. It sounds like I'm recognizing that his facts are wrong, and he's gotten you to concede to a set of circumstances, even if your logic wouldn't apply to it, and that's precisely what I'm pointing out.
Okay.
I thought, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe I should have been more clear.
No, I
think-
am admitting that I should be more clear. So I'm not putting this like one or the other. I'm admitting that I should have been more clear. I just think that like yes, as I said earlier, I would think that the response would be like, oh, Rob's wording this in a way as though he's applying Tom's logic, but he's saying all of these people would be arrested, where a lot of people are going to hear this and think
Where
Tom's
it's
saying
not
people
true.
who didn't
Yeah.
commit crimes would be arrested.
I wish
whereas it's
Tom, I
not
wish I said
applying
that
his
because-
logic
because you're-
anymore.
Yes, because Tom, I agree with your logic. I should have been clear here and said the logic is sound. It just Rob is being tricky and the facts aren't there. I should have said it like that.
Okay, I feel like a douchebag going over this small point.
Don't be a douchebag.
Sorry.
You're not a douchebag.
I feel like a douchebag going over this little point
You're-
this many times now, but
No, it's okay. Hey, no, I mean, my reviews could be better, and sometimes I miss things. I'm serious.
okay. I just initially wanted to just like make the point and talk about it if there was like a bigger disagreement there, but yeah, I think it's shortly after this where I say something about the fact that like his that he doesn't like respect the studies, or he doesn't have any studies, he doesn't listen to them, and you say something like Tom is grasping at straws now, something similar to that to try to.
Should we do that one next?
Right, yeah, if it's I think it's somewhere around the same spot. So
it's grasping, firmly grasp it. Wait, I don't see it. Maybe
I believe it's the same one.
Okay. Grasp. Oh, the same place?
I thought it was around the same place. It might not be. I think you were in the middle of like you had moved on to, I think maybe a court case or something like that when I first got there, and I just like rewinded like an hour into the VOD and then clicked at like two different spots. So I could be wrong.
Do you recall? So it was like he's grasping at straws.
It was something about him not like respecting the
let me
studies
try
or
to do
something like that. But
let me try to see if I can see this grasping at straws thing. So maybe I fucked this up too.
What was can you send me the link to that?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, you got it?
The message is the most obviously. Wait, grasping for straws. Tom is always okay. Here we go. I think I have it. I think I can. Let me try to do this.
Left or the right. It's always nice when you're.
Mantis says this is an autism battle. It's funny.
Just-
Tom is as pedantic as Pisco.
How you doing, Mantis? Hope you're having a wonderful night or morning wherever you are, and jolly old. Is he like grasping? The message is the most obviously grasping at straws. Okay, let's.
I don't know if grasping at
The
straws
message-
is. It could be reaching
Oh wait,
or
that's
something
me
like that.
talking. I think we might have a winner. Is it Tom at this point? I think you got it. Like Tom is just at this point grasping for something to shit on Trump for.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
For protesting abortion centers is fucking repugnant. And yet I wouldn't deign to suggest that if I was the neighbor with the firearm, I would have opened abortion.
Not from the self-defense perspective. It's like, why was he there in the first place defending property, right? Putting aside the legality of that, when you take this kind of look of like, well, defend yourself, defend people around you, kind of sounds like you're opening the door for right-wingers to respond, right?
For example, the people that are getting their doors kicked in for protesting abortion centers is fucking repugnant. And yet I wouldn't deign to suggest that if I was the neighbor with the firearm, I would have opened fire on these law enforcement officers.
But when we're talking about whether or not Trump actually did end up bringing back people who were illegally deported, the fact that he did was after like 2 to 3 months of protests happening.
That just doesn't seem responsive to the point that Rob is making. It sounds like Tom is just at this point grasping for something to shit on Trump for. Rob's point has to do with like the propriety of advocating for self-help in the context of government action with which you don't agree. And Tom, even though he stresses that he's not making the point that deadly self-defense would be justified in response to like conceitedly unlawful policy, is once again just going after something on Trump, which doesn't really seem typically responsive. To the extent that it's responsive, it seems to be undermining his claim to the contrary, that what he was talking about was just misidentification, not substantive disagreements in policy. So ugh.
Yeah, I'm
What
not
about that
sure.
you don't like?
I don't know. I'm a little lost on what we're even talking about here. So I have obviously misplaced your quote. So it did not apply to what it was that I said it did, and I'm totally lost on what it is that we were discussing here.
Well, we can watch the debate again
What were you gonna say?
at some point. Well, I think that like the point that you were making related to situations in which, ICE is unmasked or something, or sorry, masked up, and it could justify violence in some instance. And Rob is kind of bringing up an example of when deadly self-defense would not be justified, even though on policy grounds you think it's a bad idea for X group to do something. And the response about Trump bringing people back from illegal deportations seems to relate not to the circumstances under which people are apprehended where it's unclear that they're police, such that a self-defense rationale would be justified, but the situation in which people are apprehended for illegal purposes, as opposed to situations where it's unclear who is who. And so I think that was my point, is that like there's a conflation between the substantive illegality of the cops here, or the government, versus being able to identify who the government actually is for purposes of self-defense. I'm not sure if that is clear, or if it seems to be what the point I'm driving on is that there's a difference, in terms of when violence might be justified in that context, as between the government doing something illegal, where the moment and how to channel that illegality is through like courts of law and process and all that stuff, and situations in which like you don't even know that it's government, and where deadly self-defense might be justified. And so the decisions related to bringing people back who are deported illegally,
I'm sorry,
seem to advance the argument of
you're saying on whether or not
self-defense.
the people that ICE are going to pick up are illegal immigrants, or
No. So they're bringing people back from places that they were deported to illegally. That situation,
and you're saying there's
right,
processes but the processes were already gone through, where the Supreme Court already ruled that they had to bring him back, and they didn't, and that's the scenario.
Yeah, so I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand why either the Supreme Court ruling that certain deportations are illegal, ordering them back, and Trump doing it eventually, how that bears on issues pertaining to violence.
my understanding was that he was making, from what I remember, he was making the point that because I said protests happened and they did eventually bring them back, he was trying to say that the protests didn't do anything. And I was saying, well, they did eventually bring him back, and it was only after months of protesting. And so he kept trying to get credit to say, but Trump did bring them back. And I was saying, well, he didn't do it just because he did it after 3 months, and after 3 months of people protesting and causing a lot of problems. And so I would have, I thought that that's what we were
I went
talking
back
about.
5 minutes. I'm going to put a 1.5.
Okay.
And let's see
Administration
what happens.
is not like with guns. It's in the courtrooms and it's in the ballot box. And so, yeah, I think it's wise of Rob to like re-bring that up.
Okay, have your day in court. Let me read one more super chat and I'm back to you. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Hold on, Nate.
And this is true, by the way, even when cops detain you unlawfully, which they sometimes do, or search you unlawfully. You know, they could be doing something illegal. Doing something illegal doesn't give you the right to deadly self-defense yourself. Right? The cop could be blatantly violating the Constitution, and the time to argue that is in front of a judge with your lawyer.
Dollars, like the stream, comment, idiots. All right, go ahead. Thank you so much for that.
The last thing you said is if you think it's an officer and you're being arrested erroneously, that is not the circumstance that I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who
Okay, that's good. That's good. It seemed that, so this is the kind of stuff I want Tom to do more of, is to not let these kinds of, if that's not what you meant, you need to rebut that like right away. Be like, I'm just talking about misidentification. That's what I'm talking about. So that's good, but I wish it were for more stuff. I wish it were for the point about the concession in the first instance on the violence. I wish it were for some of these different cases where he's like, yeah, all the studies kind of suck, and I don't really know. But like, I wish he was directly rebutting the strongest rhetorical arguments that Rob is presenting.
look like regular people who are just dragging somebody off and could be gangsters, could be mobsters, could be
It's an
anyone.
absolute asinine, absurd position. And again, what we see is so much of arguing with Democrats is them pretending to not understand the fucking truth. There is a 95% chance that you know when you see ICE, who's wearing these masks, who's wearing the camo, who has handcuffs, who's in this big group, you fucking know that it's a law enforcement action. And what you're doing is,
I agree with you on the context clues. I'm saying that these people in plain clothes, wearing camo, wearing like belts with like tasers and stuff on, that is very different than some of these videos where it is people who are just walking in and grabbing people, zip tying them, and dragging them out.
my advice to you, Tom, is stop being
Look at me snarky.
empowered. You know the areas these are occurring in. Go put your fucking big boy britches on and go stop them.
Well, again, my statement was on whether or not you're standing there and watching as a passive.
what's the difference?
So go there, Tom. So go there.
Is there's a major difference on whether or not I'm going to go out and look for people who are possibly going to arrest somebody somewhere that I have no idea.
Do you know where these plainclothes actions are occurring?
I know that I see the videos when they get uploaded and that people are standing there asking them, "Are you guys ICE? Are you guys
How
ICE?
many
Are you guys
times?
ICE?"
How many times do you think it occurs in this country here that people in public go into like restaurants, grocery stores, and groups of men kidnap people in plain day? How many times do you think that happens a year?
I don't know, but I do know that I've seen a woman getting grabbed inside of a Walmart and dragged out, and numerous guys stopped the people.
By law enforcement or by
no, just by
Okay,
guys
so that happened once. Okay, that's your.
Rob is in complete control of the conversation. He's setting the ground rules. He's asking all the questions. Tom is purely playing defense on conceitedly small number of instances. Not that it isn't important to have these identification rules, but that's not even the point that he's hammering down. It's kind of he's kind of boxed himself into a corner where he's like, well, I guess I would be fighting all these ICE people with my bare hands and guns if I only knew where they were. Like, why even let that be the framing on a discussion about political violence? Tendencies.
Argument. What groups of people do you think would be likely to do that?
gangsters, most likely. That's the example. That
Cartel members.
Sure.
So you're for the deportations.
Yes, definitely.
You are.
Of course.
Okay. Well, we wouldn't
And so now you're conceding that you're in favor of Trump's deportation policy, or at least that's what it sounds like. This is the true liberal surrender hands.
have to worry about
I
these
voted for Joe
nefarious.
Biden, who has the record for a 4-year deportation.
Really?
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Really? Because we consider turnaround deportations.
Well, yes, those would also be deportations, but they're stopping people from coming over the border.
You are aware that under Biden, the border was the worst that it's ever been by any objective measure.
That is the claim. We needed more people, but that's a different.
But no, you see, it's very interesting. And like you illustrate
And so now you walk into a discussion about the border. Are you prepared for the discussion, Tom?
something. I'm glad we decided on this topic because what you illustrate is that actually, despite all of your fucking hullabaloo, you don't really give a shit about the democratic process. If you don't like the result of it, like someone like Donald Trump and how they're carrying out the law, then you're like, well, I'll stop it with firearms. But the truth of the matter is that you
Why don't you speak up, Tom? You're like, no, I didn't fucking say that. You're a liar. I never said that. You got to stop him, bro.
have no fucking right more to do that than I would have to prevent people I thought were engaged in all sorts of unlawful activity under Joe Biden.
And yeah, I mean, like, you wouldn't say, would you, that because there's some disorderly conducts or whatever, even smashing into buildings. This is what I was debating often, like with these people who are like deadly self-defense, just as property. I understand deadly self-defense where there's a nexus with property in life, such as when you're crossing a threshold into someone's home, right? That's something that I very much agree with. But like, I never have been in favor of deadly self-defense of just property, right? Of just property. And yeah, it wouldn't be a good idea. One of like the main criticisms of Kyle Rittenhouse from the left is not from the self-defense perspective. It's like, why was he there in the first place defending property, right? Putting aside the legality of that, when you take this kind of look of like, well, defend yourself and people around you, kind of sounds like you're opening the door for right-wingers to respond, right?
For example, the people that are getting their doors kicked in for protesting abortion centers is fucking repugnant. And yet I wouldn't deign to suggest that if I was the neighbor with a firearm, I would have opened fire on these law enforcement officers.
But when we're talking about whether or not Trump actually did end up bringing back people who were illegally deported, the fact that he did was after like 2 to 3 months of protests happening.
That just doesn't seem responsive to the
Can you
point
go
that Rob is
back
making.
to what he just said again?
Yeah.
I missed it.
Yeah.
That if I was the neighbor with a firearm, I would have.
Respond, right?
For example, the people that are getting their doors kicked in for protesting abortion centers is fucking repugnant. And yet I wouldn't deign to suggest
Putting the door for right-wingers to respond.
People who get their their doors kicked down for abortion centers or whatever.
For example, the people that are getting their doors kicked in for protesting abortion centers is fucking repugnant. And yet I wouldn't deign to suggest that if I was the neighbor with a firearm, I would have opened fire on these law enforcement officers.
But when we're talking about whether or not Trump actually did end up bringing back people who were illegally deported, the fact that he did was after like 2 to 3 months of protests happening.
That just doesn't seem responsive to the point that Rob is making. It sounds like Tom is just, at this point, grasping for something to shit on Trump for. Rob's point has to do with like the propriety of advocating for self-help in the context of government action with which you don't agree. And Tom, even though he stresses that he's not making the point that the self-defense would be justified in response to like conceitedly unlawful policy, is once again just going after something on Trump, which doesn't really seem typically responsive. To the extent that it's responsive, it seems to be undermining his claim to the contrary that what he was talking about was just misidentification, not substantive disagreements in policy. And so
I don't know.
Well, I'm waiting to hear what the rest of what my statement was.
Oh, my
there.
bad. Oh, sure.
oh,
Day after day. So these are things that are actually making changes. These are things that are actually
So the
putting
political
pressure on
violence is
administration.
and that unfortunately, when you put on a conversation about political violence, that's just the question he's going to ask.
Yeah. So okay. So my understanding there was
I
that
mean,
when he was talking about the abortion centers and stopping people, that he was talking about the protests stopping ICE officers from arresting people, not of like people inside of like stores when somebody gets dragged out by plainclothes officers. And so I was responding to that point because that was my understanding. Is he was saying going to an abortion clinic to stop these things from happening. So I thought he was talking, but yeah, I think I missed what he was analogizing that to.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to suggest is, listen, everyone has disagreements on policy, but that doesn't mean that we want, like, I don't agree with going after people who are protesting abortion centers. That's his characterization, I guess, of what Biden did or whatever. But I would never say like to use self-help in that context. So he's already kind of like mischaracterizing, I think, your point about self-help in the context of misidentification, right?
Yeah, I thought he was talking
And
about the
your response
protests
to-
that were impeding officers from arresting
right.
illegal immigrants, because that's where the conversation started. And then we got in the middle of that, got into like the Second Amendment thing. And then he brought up, whether or not I should go do it myself, Joe Biden. I said, that's not like relevant to the conversation. And then he said, well, the point is. And so I thought he was like re-summarizing the point about the protests. And I think that, yeah, I totally missed it because I thought, I think you're right. He is applying it to the people like actually stopping an
if
ICE
you listen
officer.
to it. Oh my God. Wait, what the fuck? Okay, one sec. What do I do? One sec. Okay. If I do this and then I do this, it should be good. One sec. Okay, cool. If you listen to it, right, it sounds like the thing is like Rob is saying, you were saying this violent stuff sometimes is justified against ICE, but listen, I have this disagreement with anti-abortion enforcement shit or whatever, but I would never say that. And then in response, you say, but look, they brought Kilmar back. And so you can understand why someone viewing it is like, oh, Tom is justifying violence, right?
Yeah,
You understand?
Yeah, I was talking
Okay.
about the protests, and I do like. There's a video of later, so later in this debate, he says that you were justifying the violence against them, blah blah blah, and I was like, I didn't though, and it's you were saying they're like I should have corrected him. There's a compilation of like every time I did correct him over and over and over where they're like, oh, so the rioting is okay. And I'm like, well, I the protests I think are beneficial because blah, blah, blah. Or like every time they would say rioting or violence, I would say the protests is what I said or something like that. And so, yeah, there is a compilation of all of that out there where I do this over and over and over. But the point was not to, justify the violence at all.
Okay. I think that you're fair, Tom, and I think that like you were probably referring to a slice of circumstances under which violence might be justified. But I don't think that that's the debate proposition, and I don't think even if you meant it to just be those limited circumstances, I think that like Rob gets the optical whatever of making it feel like you're justifying violence.
Yeah. Well,
know?
he asks outright at some point, "Are you saying that these are justified because of this?" And I say,
You say no.
I say, if uh, if I had to choose between people going out and murdering people or engaging in property destruction, I would rather them engage in property destruction than murdering somebody as a type of political violence. But I don't want them to engage in violence necessarily. And each time I
all,
answer,
yeah.
I don't say at all. Each time I do say like necessarily, or depending on the circumstance or something like that, I do give like things like that, because I don't want to make blanket statements that will say like, every single time this has ever happened, it's always going to be unjustified. It's always going to be wrong. Like, I don't want to make that statement either. So,
Yeah.
which I was surprised he didn't push me
I
on. Like, well, when would it be justified? I was very, very surprised.
I
that
thought
he
you only
never
watched
pushed me
15
on.
minutes. You fucking liar.
Like I
Liar.
said, I skipped
listen.
through 2 different points, and so I
Got it.
only, I watched this part and the part before that. I skipped from one point to another.
Well, listen, I guess I'm a tomfoolery snark channel now.
Yep.
So listen,
It's all right. I got a lot of
I
haters.
wasn't
There's
intending
one
to.
more. It's all right.
No, I'm not a
It
hater.
is
I'm not
what
a
it is,
hater. I'm
man.
not a
It is what
hater.
it is.
No, listen. We can review it together at some point. I forget a lot of the points, but if you're interested in it, and I can offer a revision to my review, and then it'll be your official score will be changed.
Okay, but fair enough. I'm happy to go over it. Like I said, like I do have like a lot of
Okay, yeah.
criticisms of myself, so I have no issue with you pointing out things that I did wrong and getting into it if you want to.
So I have a very exacting standard, and sometimes I can be a bit harsh, and so let's chat about it again at some point, and let's see if we want to take some time to review it.
Okay. All right. Hit me up.
Hey, brother.
All right.
I love you, dog.
Later, homie.
Stay cool, all right?
All right.
Later,
You too.
bro.
Bye.
Later.
I think I proved that he's a layman.